Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Dear devotees, we would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the temple management of thanking you for attending this very special Sunday Love Feast program. Today's program is an anniversary program that commemorates the opening of this beautiful temple. Today we have devotees who have been here prior to as well as been part of that wonderful opening ceremony. We all know and we all understand the powerful impact this temple has had on our lives. And today we are going to hear from devotees what their personal experiences being at the opening as well as their current services and activities. And we're also going to encourage later on in the program, if any of you have been here for that opening, you can also share your realizations and your experiences in 1985 when this temple was opened. When Srila Prabhupada visited South Africa in 1975, he had given his disciples 3 instructions at that time. One was to hold a Rath Yatra festival, which we have been doing successfully over the years. Hare Krishna. The second instruction was prasadam distribution, which we have a wonderful food program, which is distributing thousands of plates of prasadam for over years. The third instruction was to build a temple. And the disciples of Srila Prabhupada took this instruction very, very seriously. And over the years, having traveled the length and breadth of this country, collecting funds as well as sourcing material such as these tiles which came from Portugal, the wood that came from Japan, artwork that came from Italy. So many different aspects of this temple was brought together through sincere effort and dedication to seeing their spiritual master's desire fulfilled. And there are so many devotees that we would like to mention later on in the program who have contributed to what we have today. And just the sheer impact that this has had on our lives, we cannot ignore the contribution that these devotees have made and the sacrifices they have undergone to see this temple come to light. So I'd like to welcome our panelists. If they could please come and take their seats. Today's panelists, I'm actually going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. But we have Her Grace Champakalata Devidasi. His Grace, give them a round of applause. His Grace Jai Sachinandan Das. We have Her Grace Rasamrita Devidasi. His Grace Srinathji Das. And then we have another Mataji, I'm not sure if everybody knows her, but she goes by the name of Radhanath Devidasi. Hare Krishna. I'm sure these are not faces that you all are not familiar with. Or there's faces here that are definitely familiar with. I'm going to give them a chance to briefly introduce themselves and what their services are currently. So we'll start with Srinath Ji, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I'm Srinath Ji Das. I've joined ISKCON in the early 80s, and I've been serving the ISKCON Russia as a photographer.
Prabhu, you also have your daughter on this panel.
Yes, my daughter is Champakalata Devi Dasi, and she's been there from the temple opening and the early days.
Sorry, what's the mic on? Champakalata Mataji, for those of you who don't know, she's actually the head of the Ministry of Justice for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and she also served as a legal counsel for ISKCON South Africa. And she has been doing wonderful service for Shri Radhanath for many, many years.
Hare Krishna. So as Sri Charan Prabhu mentioned, two specific service areas that he has listed as my current services. Over the years, I've also served at Sri Radhanath Temple from my university days, actually, under the supervision of Radhanath Mataji, whom I know everyone she's engaged in service. During my university holidays, helped sew outfits for the deities, assisted with the reception, with the communications and public relations, and various management services as well, until this point as the Child Protection Office Director internationally, and now as the Minister of Justice. Just a point of correction in what my dad actually said. It was the temple opened in 1985, but I know it's a long, long, long time ago. Our involvement with ISKCON actually is prior to the 1980s and in the late 1970s itself, because the first Rath Yatra was in 1978 in Tongat, and we were there. So I know it's definitely in the late 1970s, because we were there, we were in Cato Ridge, even the installation of the Srila Prabhupada deity in Cato Ridge. So I know it goes back to the late 1970s. Thank you.
Well, talking about the 1970s, our next person who will introduce herself, her father, Lokabandhu Prabhu, actually attended the class that Srila Prabhupada gave in Pietermaritzburg.
Hare Krishna. I'm Mother Rasamrita Devidasi, and I serve in Pietermaritzburg, Sri Sri Dal Nitai Gaura Hari. I help with the management and also with Pujari. But I will never ever not find home with Sri Sri Radhanath and this temple of understanding, because this temple manifests its energy to the whole of South Africa, and we are in deep gratitude today in celebrating the 37 years of the manifestation of these lordships, and to give deep appreciation to all those devotees who have made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. I think you've also, prior to this program, she told me that she has a list of devotees. We'll get into that list of all those devotees in the early 80s that helped. And I don't think this program will be complete if we don't mention their names and at least acknowledge their contribution. And talking about contributions, the next person we have here on the panel has made a significant contribution before 1985. She will get into it a little later, but just introducing herself, Mother Radhanath.
Hare Krishna. I joined here in 1979, ISKCON, from Cato Ridge days, and then when the temple opened, I was asked to come and do some deity worship. So, yeah, my service started here with deity worship, and cooking for the deities and sewing. for the little things.
Thank you, Mataji. She actually has quite a long CV, but she's just given you the very shortened version there. Everybody knows her that if you want some Mahaprasadam, she's always distributing and without you even asking, and if you ever need Mahaprasadam, she's the go-to person. Another very senior and long-standing devotee here in our Radhanath temple, actually just discussing before the program, he just made it known to me he wasn't here at the opening. But he had an exciting story to share about how he was introduced to Krishna consciousness. I'm sure he's going to get into it, but let him introduce himself first.
Hare Krishna. My name is Jai Sachinandan Das. Please see me as your servant. I'm not very senior, as he says. I'm just trying to be a devotee. And I happened to come and visit, exactly this time, a year after the temple opened. It was during traditionally the Tamil people do Paratasi, and that's the time I visited the temple, and that was my first impression. And that first impression has been a lasting impression for me. I never look back. It's been here now 36 years since I'm here. Hare Krishna.
So just by a quick show of hands, how many of you seated in the crowd were here for the opening in 1985? Wow, that's quite a number. How many of you have seen pictures or videos of the opening? It's quite a few. Now, many of us have seen videos and seen pictures, and all of that was made possible by an individual on this panel. And his passion and his dedication to that particular craft has made him, really enhanced his devotional service. And he's going to now share with you, and I know he's brought a little show and tell as well. So he's going to share his experiences on that day. That opening ceremony is actually not just one day; it was actually a festival over 3 days. So Srinath Ji Prabhu will share with us his experiences over that festival.
Hare Krishna. I have covered quite a few events of the ISKCON in Durban, but the most promising one that captured my vision and memories was the temple opening. In 1989, I did the Rath Yatra, the first Rath Yatra at the Durban beachfront. I also captured the first Rath Yatra at the Tongat, and the first Krishna Ashtami in Ketu Ridge, as well as the first Krishna Ashtami festival in the Unitary grounds. Well, in 1982, the construction of the temple started with the planting of the Ananda Shesh, where the present deities are situated right at the bottom, about 6 meters down. There was the planting of a gold ceremony. The gold was laid, there was a yagya, and there was a fire sacrifice. That day, it was on 3rd of February 1980. Thereafter, the ISKCON Construction Company was formed. The starting of the temple progressed with Tulsi Das as Prabhu, as the president, and Raja Ram Prabhu, all from overseas. He was the construction manager. And the construction continued until the very day when the announcement of the temple opening was done for the 18th, 19th, and 20th of 1985. On that particular day, the first day, there was a big yagya and a fire sacrifice from the pujaris from Maipur, ISKCON in India, where the current Prasadam Maki is situated. The deities were all laid on the floor in rice, and their eyes were closed. And this was the yagya for honoring them and welcoming the deities to this temple. And that captured my vision. Thereafter, the next day, we had the installation of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, there was a stage and a marquee at the boom, all decorated. And Srila Prabhupada, there was an Abhishek ceremony and an ecstatic kirtan by Bhaktatirtha Swami. And the late Shamlal was also on stage. And then Parthasarati Das, now Parthasarati Das Goswami, and Raghuveer Das, now Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. They participated in this event. Thereafter, of the opening eye ceremony of the deities and the installation of Srila Prabhupada, the main day arrived. On that particular day, I was given the task to be with Siddhanta and Nishingananda Das. He is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. They came from ITV, ISKCON Television Networks from America. And I, as a local photographer, was given the task to see to the needs of the opening of the temple. They need a tripod, they need some video lights, and so forth. So on that particular day, we went to Virginia Airport on the North Coast. We boarded an helicopter. There was Nishingananda was a cameraman, and Siddhanta was an audio technician. They all had professional equipment. And I had the Hitachi camera, which was non-digital at that stage. There was no side screen where you can flip and see. It was just an eye viewfinder. And there was no autofocus. And the camera I had was a Pentax 1000. It used a reel film. Not a memory card, not a flash stick. So I loaded a 36 reel film. We went to Virginia Airport, we boarded the aircraft. And as the aircraft, the helicopter came into Chatsworth, it was an amazing sight that will live in the memories of all my life. From the air, the temple looked like a lotus flower. It was gorgeous, fantastic, marvelous. And what come, all the traffic from all the areas where there was a traffic jam. They couldn't get into the temple. Higginson Highway, I think it's right up from Unit 3. The cars were jammed just to come to the opening. Eventually, we came down. As we came closer to the temple, and we started doing the filming. And as I was focusing with not manual camera, the helicopter moved. I had to refocus. Then I've got my Pentax on my shoulder to capture the shots. And the Pentax was also not an autofocus camera. It was a manual camera. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and their lordship, I took the pictures. And I also captured the video. And thereafter, we came back to the temple. And I want to show you the pictures that I've captured. This was the official temple opening. This was the official temple opening from the air. This picture in 1996 in the centennial celebration of Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, Shamlal took this picture and displayed it in India. And thereafter, the Hare Krishna newsletter. This picture appeared in the first page in 1985. And these are very treasurable memories to me. On a daily basis, I worship this memory. And as we descended, we came back, and there was an ecstatic kirtan. And our dear Srila Prabhupada was on the palanquin. They all were carrying him on the shoulder and going around the moat 3 times with an ecstatic kirtan. They came to the entrance. Hundreds of devotees were following Srila Prabhupada. The bell rang. The conch shell blew. The ribbon was there. And Srila Prabhupada was there. Bhagwan was then here. Giriraj Swami was here. Bhaktitirtha Swami was here. J.N. Reddy, a minister, and Raj Bansi was here. And not forgetting Bhutlesi. He was present. And I had the good fortune, Jai Shri Shri Radhanath ki Jai. And I had the good fortune, I was first behind the ribbon to have the opportunity to catch that moment that the ribbon is cut. The ribbon was cut, and here the doors open, and what a glorious sight it was to the temple, the ceiling, the pictures. And as Srila Prabhupada came in front of the altar, still on the palanquin, and the kirtan continued, the conch shell blew, and the curtain opened, and unveiled the Lordship Sri Sri Radhanath. All glories to Sri Sri Radhanath. And Bhutlesi, the ministers, all fell, and they took darshan. Thereafter, Srila Prabhupada was taken to his current Vyasasana. From then, the temple was open, and all the devotees and the people flocked in, viewing the temple and taking darshan of the lordships. So I've got another picture that I've captured, that the cutting of the ribbon.
It's there.
I've done many Bollywood concerts, and I've done sports, and I've done social functions, but the most memorable moments in my life was this grand temple opening. All glories to the Lordship Sri Sri Radhanath, and all glories to the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Srinaji Prabhu. It's hard to believe that this is, you mentioned that this is the first time you were addressing the temple, but there was such a personal and such a moving, inspirational experience that you had. I can really see how this opening, not just doing that service, but the impact it has had in your life. And just observing you and your family, you could see the impact that not just that event, but your taking to Krishna consciousness you've got now, grandkids that are actively involved in the movement, and all your kids are actively involved. So we thank you for your contribution, and I know you are the kind of person that's always in the background, very unassuming, but just listening to you today, it just goes to show that there are so many devotees amongst us here who played such a valuable role and who had experienced things firsthand. And speaking about people being there firsthand, we'd like to hear from Mother Radhanath. Mataji, you are actively involved in the Pujari department currently. Can you tell us a little bit about the installation of Radhanath?
I actually came here on the day of the installation because I was in Caterage in service.
So you were doing service at Caterage at that time?
Yeah.
And which year did you join the Caterage temple?
1980.
1980.
I mean, actually 1979 in September.
And was your service to the contribution to the temple, were you involved in any fundraising or any?
Oh yes, we used to go out every day.
And were you were selling incense or books or?
We used to do book distribution.
Now the anticipation.
We used to do deity worship in the morning, dress the deities, and then by like 7 or 7:30, we never took breakfast or anything. We had to all go out and collect.
Now, all of the service that you've done since you joined in 1980 up to 1985, what can you tell us about the actual opening of the temple and the impact that had on you and the anticipation of that, for 5 years, all the service that you were doing coming up to that? What was it like to experience the opening over those 3 days?
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. It was very difficult those days because it was the apartheid time. So it's mostly the Indian devotees used to go out and collect and then.
What service were you involved in during that festival time, or were you were doing Pujari service?
No, I used to do sewing.
Mm.
And then deity service also. I used to be the backup.
So at that time you were the backup?
Yeah.
So you've been promoted over the years. Mataji, what can you tell us about the impact that opening ceremony had on you and on a personal level? How did it change you and how did it solidify, you staying in this temple for so many years? There has to be something there that is...
Yeah, actually, Radharani just captured my heart. And I think from that time on, I said, I'll never leave. Yeah.
Wow, so Radharani captured your heart and you were given the appropriate name, Radhanath. And, you're always like kind of an extension of Radhanath, out amongst the devotees and always encouraging, always giving Mahaprasadam and just being a wonderful delight to always associate. You've always had a smile on your face and you're always very encouraging over the years. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I can read if you want.
Sure.
This is to Hare Krishna. In 1985 was the grand installation which summoned a new hope for South Africa. Devotees underwent so much of austerity to build this temple. For example, Shamla Prabhu risked his life while traveling to collect funds. When his car went over a cliff and for days he couldn't be found, yes, Krishna saved him. He had firm faith in Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada envisioned from a distance that on that hill build a temple. This is the largest temple in southern hemisphere. Everything was as Srila Prabhupada wanted. Many devotees were involved in building the temple for the deities. Bimal Prasad Das, the first head pujari, who oversaw the sculpture of the deities and arranged the safe transport of the deities and dealt with customs and other complications. The opening was so magnificent, and nothing like this was ever experienced in this material world. Everything was transformed. Sri Radhanath definitely wanted to come here. One could feel the presence of the Supreme Lord. Everyone was so mesmerized by the extreme beauty of the temple, the dazzling chandeliers and the adorning pictures of Krishna's pastimes. Lo, behold, when the curtains opened to view the deities, a sight so wonderful, so beautiful, the charming forms of Shri Radha Radhanath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The most wonderful news ever that a sacred thread on Lord Radhanath's body revealed itself. In 2013, the temple won the KwaZulu-Natal Landmark Tourist Award. Before Srila Prabhupada's departure from this world, he made a request to his disciples. Your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. The challenge here is to put Krishna in the center. It is not always easy to do so. So frankly, states that we are often unwillingly to cooperate. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. When we are driven by envy, derision, or pride, instead of appreciation, compassion, or cordiality, whether we are in a so-called superior, inferior, or equal position, we may proclaim, do it my way or the highway. In Bhagavad Gita 10:8, Krishna says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. This we have to understand, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He is accepted as such. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very, very much, Mother Radhanath. While you have that mic in your hand.
Hare Krishna, Sri Charan Prabhu. I've been truly humbled when I listened to the two former speakers of their hands-on experience with these beautiful lordships and with the manifestation of this magnificent temple. And like Mother Radhanath said, it features on our tourism schedule of Durban. I remember His Holiness Bhakti Charaswami always stressing that the way to Radha and Krishna is through I'm calling it Sri Sri Dal Nitai Gaura Hari, those are our deities, but the deities in Cato Ridge, Sri Sri Gaura Hari, they gave the energy and the spiritual empowerment for Radhanath to manifest. And of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself prophesied that in every town and village, the Sankirtan movement will manifest and the Lord's holy names will be chanted. And in this temple, Sri Sri Radhanath, over the 3.5 more decades, we've seen what magnificent programs have unfolded. And for the upkeep of these beautiful lordships, we celebrate the pujaris, the preachers, and all the devotees that have selflessly sacrificed their lives to serve and continue to selflessly sacrifice their lives to uphold Sri Sri Radha Radhanath. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. I think that's a valid point in that as much as we can value and appreciate the efforts of so many devotees in those early days to see this temple come up, we also have to acknowledge the devotees that are currently working. Some of them are very young, some of them are balancing careers and their studies, but it's so enlivening to see the enthusiasm and that legacy just moving forward. And as much as we've had our setbacks over the past 2 years with COVID, we're rising from there much more stronger and much more, our preaching efforts are with much more vigor, and it's really inspiring to see that. But thank you for that. But I'd like for you to just tell us something, like for a minute, just your personal experience, which we haven't heard, on 1985.
So my late dad, His Grace Lokabandhu Prabhu, and Mother Kirtida, they were stalwart devotees, and I was just a 19-year-old university student. But they warned me, you come to the temple opening because it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be mammoth, there's going to be a helicopter, the great leaders of South Africa, the likes of Raj Bansi and Buthelezi are going to be there, so you come. So I did come, and it was quite an awesome experience. The lords were clad in white cloth, not yet fully manifested. A huge fire sacrifice, massive. And I must say, the first arti, there was a flower that fell, and I caught it, and also lost it. But it was very precious indeed. When you walked into this octagonal architectural splendor and the beautiful pictures, you were truly transported from the material world into the spiritual sky of transcendence. And I offer my respect and gratitude deeply to all those devotees, especially His Holiness Parthasarati Das Goswami and His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, our two stalwarts gurus. I do not know how we move forward when they leave to the spiritual sky. They hold us together with such depth of glue. Thank you, Prabhu.
And just one quick question. In 1975, when your father attended the lecture in Pietermaritzburg with Srila Prabhupada, did you attend that?
No, Prabhu. He
You had
made me
homework.
babysit my brothers so that he could go. But we somehow got that mercy through them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji. That was
Hare
wonderful to hear.
Krishna.
Champakalatha Mataji, we'd like to hear from you.
Hare Krishna. So maybe I'll pick up from where Rasamrita Mataji actually ended, speaking of Srila Prabhupada and her parents actually attending Srila Prabhupada's program in 1975 at City Hall. Krishna has his plan for when we come into his association in terms of associating with the devotees. So I've been told by my parents at least that on that occasion of Srila Prabhupada being here in South Africa in City Hall in 1975, relatives of theirs had actually come by to visit them en route to City Hall and invited them to join them to go and hear from the Swami that had come from India. And my parents declined. So, notwithstanding that in 1975, although despite having the opportunity that mercy was being extended, but the time was perhaps not right for us at that stage. And we find that there are many persons that did attend those programs, heard from Srila Prabhupada, but still continued with their normal activities. And then there's the rest of us that actually, due to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, via his disciples, eventually came to Krishna consciousness. So not long thereafter, my family came in contact with the devotees with the 10 campaign program. And, in Unit 310 campaign, my parents had attended those campaigns, took us along. We're a very close-knit family. Always we would go together as a family unit to go to these programs. And my dad had actually taken the opportunity to invite them. He was very inspired by whatever he heard at the 10 campaign, and he wanted to bring that 10 campaign to our area where we were living at the time, in Isipingo Rail. So he invited the devotees to bring the 10 campaign to Isipingo Rail. As a result of that, he had to make all the arrangements, municipal permissions, all of those things. And I clearly remember once the campaign was about to, the marquee was about to be erected, the marquee company was going to come, and the field, that open space of ground, it was, the grass was so high, and it was impossible to actually have that grass cut timeously. So can I say, Daddy, what happened? What do you think happened? They set the ground alight. so it leveled very quickly, and the marquee could be erected timeously. So that's how we came to Krishna consciousness, and those are the early efforts of the devotees, the great lengths that they went to. Partha Maharaj in his 10 campaign, that could take the entire day to just describe. So I'll just like to, move a bit forward in that journey. And going to the Keter Ridge Temple became an outing, a Namahata outing, because from the 10 campaign, wherever the 10 campaign went, the preaching occurred, it then drew together a number of persons who became interested in the process of Krishna consciousness. And because there was no temple in existence in close proximity, what would then happen is a Namahata would be established in that area, so that the resident devotees from Keter Ridge Temple would go once a week to that Namahata program. And at that Namahata program, that is where we derived our spiritual nourishment, because these temple devotees would come out. And I clearly remember as a young girl, my dad leaving very early in the morning in not a very reliable car at that too, going on those dirt roads all the way to Keter Ridge, and fetching devotees from there, Gaur Premananda Prabhu, and bring him on a weekly basis, travel back to Isipingo, just so that the Namahata, the devotees would be able to do their preaching. The Namahatas were absolutely inspiring, and we would look forward to it with great enthusiasm, because it was just not sitting and listening to a class. We would be engaged in various services. We would have sloka recitals. We'd have to learn a verse by the following week. And when we recited those verses, we would get the trophy, for instance. And we would be planning, dramas and skits, so that when the festivals happened, and we didn't have the temple, like I said, so when the Janmashtami program happened at the Unit 3 grounds, each Namahata put on a presentation on that stage in the open field. So we were all very nicely being engaged in Krishna consciousness. Then there were programs at the Playhouse Theatre, when Jayatirtha used to come, and then there used to be programs there as well. And we were all engaged in our own little capacity, small capacity that we had. And mind you, I'm the youngest amongst all of you, the panelists here, so I was a little girl back then. And the only thing that I was possibly capable of doing in terms of contributing to the temple construction was selling tickets, the buy a brick ticket, because that's how the fundraising took place on every single level. House to house, whoever you knew, you would take a book, you'd get it at the Namahata, and you would sell a 1 Rand ticket as a contribution towards the bricks that were required for this particular temple construction. In the Skanda Purana, it is actually said that if one contributes towards the building or the renovation of a temple, then one is absolved from all sinful activities that one may have committed in 7 lifetimes before, and all your forefathers who may be anguishing in the hellish planets are also relieved of that as well. So that is how important it is to actually contribute, to temple constructions, to temple renovations. And it's also said that contributing to the temple itself and to deity worship is as good as performing an Ashwamedha sacrifice, right? The horse sacrifice. So that's a very huge sacrifice, but you get the benefits of that by just your contributions to the temple. So in my little way, as a young girl, I was just a teenager actually at that stage, just in my early teens, contributed towards selling those buy a brick tickets, and then whoever sold the most tickets would get the trophy for the week as well. And then in that way, the day eventually arrived for the temple opening itself. And once again, I must acknowledge those pioneering devotees who made all those sacrifices that have been mentioned. And, you know, my dad mentioned that the devotees formed their own ISKCON construction company because this became a labor of love. Apart from, you know, weighing the cost factors if it had to be outsourced to a construction company, these devotees physically, and I saw today on the ISKCON broadcast WhatsApp group, the link to that video was posted. But you'll see there that these devotees physically, personally took up the tools. You will see in terms of how every little aspect that we are blessed with today to actually be sitting here in this glorious temple is by their efforts. From the point where they would go and, you know, they had to become very innovative because just asking for donations and selling those buy-a-brick tickets was not going to be sufficient to cover all the costs of the construction. So they even had to diversify and start selling paintings, Western paintings, at the Pick and Pay hypermarket, Hyper by the Sea, the Hyperama, which used to be in Prospecton back then, candles, and all of these things, you know, in whatever way possible to raise funds. I have with me today, and I'm sure some of you might have seen this, the souvenir book that was published for the temple opening itself. A hardcover book with hundreds of pages, I must add. And as I flip through this book, you will see that there are hundreds of adverts in them. So this was another way of raising funds for the temple, publishing this book, selling advert space in this book. And this was done by all the devotees. So the devotees had different teams. Like I know Mother Jagannath Ishwari, she was responsible for the publication of this book and getting all the articles together. Then there was the team selling the advert space. And what amazed me by turning through the pages of this recently was to see how there was acknowledgement of every single person that contributed, apart from, I'm sure, the R1 buy-a-brick donors, because there would have been too many of them. But when we look at this, even donations as small as 50 rands, there's a list of those persons that gave 50 rands, those that gave 100 rands, 200 rands, and it goes on to the point where it is those that gave over 4,000 and ultimately those that gave over 5,000. So, you know, it takes every single little bit of money to put this temple together. And that Lakshmi was used in Krishna's service. So the continued maintenance of the temple as well, you know, those devotees did what they needed to do to bring it to that point. And then it is the managers subsequently that have had to continue to maintain this temple. And I've been very fortunate, I must add, to have been part of various management structures over the years, having been involved from 1988 onwards in communications, in legal matters for ISKCON, and serving continuously thereafter. So the various past temple presidents and managers as well, we must acknowledge them in continuing and particularly having that kind of vision to expand the preaching efforts. I mean, and I don't intend to take much more time, but when one reflects on there was thousands, as has been described, of people that attended, the public that attended the opening festival, so much so that I remember over the opening days, at least the first day, I never got to enter the temple. It would have just been too much of a crowd. I was speaking to a devotee earlier, and that devotee who was very much involved in service here said to me that she needed to replenish stock in the gift shop. And to get from where the boom is, where the gift shop was, to come into the temple room to take more stock there, took her 1.5 hours in the queue. So I definitely did not enter the temple room on that particular day. But it is, the fact is we are here today, and it is how we honor that legacy that has been handed to us to move and continue to preach Krishna consciousness, to share this mercy that we have been so kindly beneficiaries of with others. Because Krishna consciousness, what Srila Prabhupada's mission, he received this process of Krishna consciousness, and he could have kept it to himself. And we can all keep it to ourselves and advance individually as devotees. But that progress in your own spiritual life only comes when you share it with others. We are a missionary movement. So bringing more and more devotees to the feet of Srila Prabhupada, the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, and their Lordship Sri Radha Radhanath, is what, we need to honor Srila Prabhupada and give gratitude in that way by continuing these preaching efforts and, contributing to the upkeep of the temple and having a vision that this particular temple, it has earned its place in the history of ISKCON. Still, many yatras look towards this particular temple as being a very well-established yatra. But it's how we continue with Srila Prabhupada's preaching efforts that will actually pave the way forward for generations beyond our lifetime. And I think it is important, and this has always been spoken about in the past, to create a trust fund for the maintenance of the deities itself. And if we could all consider, with birth, death is certain. That's one thing that is certain in our lives. And we all consider making our wills so that our assets that we acquire during our lifetime, who is going to be, inheriting it, who's going to be the beneficiary of it. If we can consider that upon our passing away, that we leave something for the future of this temple, for the future of the maintenance of the deities as well, then, you have paved your way to go back to Godhead in that way. Because, like I said earlier, if you make these contributions, what benefits you get. But by doing so, you are also booking your room in Vaikuntha as well. So, I think we have been very blessed to be here today. And we need to be visionaries in where we want to see this temple continue. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Radha. Some very valid points and very inspirational points of being a visionary in Krishna consciousness. I'd like to now hand over to Jai Sachinandan Prabhu, who'd share his experiences. As I mentioned, he wasn't here when the temple opened, but he was telling me an interesting story of how he used to drive past and wonder, what is this building?
Hare Krishna. So compared to all of them, I feel very unfortunate. They embraced Krishna consciousness at a very young age. When this building was going on, I had friends living behind the stadium, and we used to go often, visit them. And I see this building, it never dawned on me that, some very wonderful structure is coming up. I guess Maya was really covering me. And then it never dawned on me that one day I'll be staying in this temple. So that's the irony of the whole thing. So when the first day I came, I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay and make a commitment. And I was appreciating Champakalata's point about commitment of the congregation. Like in the churches, they have a commitment. They give the members they give tithes, and they are committed to give those tithes. But I noticed that the commitment is not there from the management to stress that, because it's just like it's not forced upon you, because devotional service, you cannot force devotional service, and we should give out of love. So, but we should really, if we have the amenities, we have the resources, we should make it available so this wonderful temple can, to maintain the deities. The resources are very, very limited. And we have to I know when I joined, we had to go out. That time there was a lot of devotees, and we had to go out, and we had a quota of 4,000 rand a week we had to bring to run this temple. That was 1987, around there. So, the beginning was very tough, very, very challenging. And of course, we went through so many challenges also, recently the pandemic that the temple was closed for like almost 2 years, and we lost contact with people. So many people have passed on. And also I'd like to take this opportunity to pay homage, to pay tribute to those who that we didn't know about, that worked so hard to build this wonderful that we are enjoying today. And we should, take a moment to reflect and really think about that, how they had sacrificed their lives. Some of them have passed on. Some of them have left ISKCON. Some of them we don't know where they are. But they gave their life to this movement, and we have to acknowledge that. And therefore I try my to do some service, and try to be a part of the, not just be a number, but to try and preach and get more people to come and join the temple or give the money to the temple, and also fundraise for the festivals and like that. So, when festival time means there's opportunity to bring more people in. That's how preaching, increases, and we should take that moment to do that, by book distribution. So many ways we can expand this movement. I mean, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, when he would visit often, and he would say, this ISKCON is not a static, it has to be dynamic. We are not static. Dynamic means we have to move. This is a movement. We have to show by example, by exemplary behavior, and this way we will attract so many wonderful conditioned souls to ISKCON. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jai Sachinanda Prabhu. And you cannot get away without answering a question. Can you tell us what it was like walking through these doors the first time?
Yeah, as I told you, the first impression I got was, I remember the book table. That was the first part of entry, and was a very sweet young bhakti named Shama, who later became my god sister, Shama Devi. And she took my name down, and very warm greeting, welcoming me. And remember, I bought a book called Coming Back, and I sat here, right here. And I read the whole book. It took like 2 hours, more than, around there. But I was so caught up by the beautiful atmosphere, the deities. So that was my first impressions of this temple. And we should, learn something from that. A first impression is always a lasting impression. So people coming from all walks of life, and sometimes it's the first time they're getting a chance to come to Krishna consciousness or come to visit the temple. They don't know. They're not aware that just being here or seeing the deity is like punya. You are accruing your spiritual balance. But if we deny them that, then when will we give them a chance to come back again? When? So we should be very conscious of that, how we treat the people the first time as we come. I remember I was here, and it was a very, very wealthy Afrikaner woman. She was wealthy, you could tell by all the rings she had on her hand, and she was dressed very exquisitely. And she was looking at the deities, and she was crying. She said, I come here for the first time. I don't know why I'm crying. Yeah, that was so amazing. So we don't know we don't know who comes to Krishna consciousness, and that may be the point of contact to see the Lord face to face and increase the spiritual life like that. Hare Krishna.
Shishi Radhanath ki. Thank you very much, very much, Jai Sachinanda Prabhu, for that very inspiring message. Devotees, just very quickly, I've been given permission just to go on for about 10 more minutes. The Arti will go on now, and at 1 o'clock there will be Damodarastakam prayers, followed by offering of lamps at 10 past 1, and thereafter Prasadam will be served at 1:30. I'd just like to take this opportunity very quickly to hear from a devotee who's been a resident here, and just to talk about his experiences and what it's been like for him actually not just living here but being raised here. Balaram Prabhu? So Balaram Prabhu was raised in this temple, and he's gonna, you can sit, Jai Sachinanda Prabhu, I'll let Balaram Prabhu sit right here, or maybe he's young enough to stand. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. I have zero qualification to be standing here, except BEE, so please forgive me. As Prabhu mentioned, so I'm not part of the early Vaishnavas in the movement. The temple was actually constructed before I was even born, but I found myself here in the temple when my father joined in 1990, and then I decided I'd go and find my father, like every story in the Black Township, and he happened to be in this Indian community, which was the Hare Krishna temple. I'm joking, that's some light humor. Yeah, but what can I say about the temple? Well, being raised in the temple was a great opportunity to get to meet different people from different walks of life. Like just seeing the panel that we have here and the relationships that I managed to develop over the years and be able to be given an opportunity to serve, starting from Champa Kalata Mataji. One of my biggest memories of her is we share a spiritual master, His Holiness Indradumna Swami, and she was always involved in doing a lot of temple programs and arrangements, but one that was very important to me since I was a kid is the kids program they had some years ago, and she always took out so much time and effort to actually focus on that there, although the devotees had so much other services to do there, but she always pushed the emphasis on taking care of the kids in Krishna consciousness. And at that point I was a kid in Krishna consciousness, and now I'm a 36-year-old father in Krishna consciousness. And then just looking at, I have my daughter is actually 4 years old. I think I was actually at that age when I came to Shishi Radha Radhanath Temple of Understanding. And then my daughter is 4 years old. I came here when I was 4 years old too. So yeah, I think I can start taking Krishna consciousness seriously now since she's taken over. I'm no longer the kid in the temple. But yeah, I'm supposed to say some nice things about the temple, but everybody has already said so much. But just reflecting on the things that the devotees were mentioning, like Radhanath Mataji was explaining how they had to get up in the temple and do deity service, and then during the day go around doing collections for the programs. That for this temple to be here right now, there's so many devotees who had to sacrifice so much and do so much services so that we have these facilities. And we are fortunate, most of us that came on later on, because all we had to do was just participate. But unfortunately, as time goes, even participation starts to become something that's difficult to do. But when we come around like this and we hear the devotees speaking about what the devotees had to actually go through just to make sure that we have these facilities, then it will touch something in our hearts that, hey, these facilities that are here and these devotees that work so hard, at least if we cannot endeavor to push it forward and maybe build more. And as Mataji was saying, there's so much piety that comes from being part of constructing the temple, renovating the temple. But if you can't even participate in that, at least your heart should be touched that with all the sacrifices that the devotees have put in place, can you at least participate in the program? And participating means you come through the first time, like as I was saying, I have a daughter now, so I'm no longer the temple child. So even the devotees that are here, at first on arrival, you are the visitor, but the next time that you come to the temple, you are no longer a visitor, you are a resident. So whenever, as Jai Sachinanda Prabhu was saying, when new people come through, you should be able to maybe welcome those people. And yes, unfortunately, I haven't been a role model to do that. I'm just sending that message through. But it works as a reminder when I'm hearing Jai Sachinanda Prabhu say that, I feel guilty that, hey, that's actually important. We forget that the advantage that we have of being in a temple the first or the second time around is that whenever a new person comes, you can just give them a smile. As Jai Sachinanda Prabhu mentioned, the first time he came here, he was shocked by the warm welcome that he felt there. So you can also be that. And then Srinathji Prabhu, which is the official photographer for ISKCON South Africa. I remember him from my younger days because I was a bit of a forward child. I tried to show up in every picture, so I'm sure he'll remember me from that. But also, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to the devotees that have come before us and the services that they have actually done. Like I remember even when they used to have festivals, all the devotees used to actually rush up there and you're waiting to catch Maha from the altar. And then Srinathji Prabhu would actually have the, what would you call this? Difficult task of making sure that nobody hits over the tripod and still capture perfect pictures of Shishi Radha Radhanath. And then when everybody would leave to go take prasadam, he would still be here like wrapping up all his paraphernalia for taking care of that. So now that I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, hey, we never actually, what do they say in the material world? Give people their flowers while they're still alive. So Srinathji Prabhu and all these devotees that have actually done different services, thank you so much for the younger generation that's here. And we'd make some commitment that based on the inspiration that we've gotten from the service that you've done, to have some commitment to Shishi Radha Radhanath and Srila Prabhupada. So thank you much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Balaram Prabhu. That was really inspiring to hear, and you actually took my job there for giving a good vote of thanks. You've given your acknowledgement to these devotees, and that's just wonderful. I like the idea of not just being a visitor and being a resident. I think if everyone can meditate on that idea, I think that's a wonderful realization, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Sorry, I have a tendency of doing this. No, as you were speaking there, just this one point that came in mind, it's actually from the material world. Usually it comes from the African culture where they say that you are who your ancestors have been waiting for. So I may not directly be able to tie that to the situation, but all the devotees that came in the past and did all the services. So in African culture, they say whatever you do, like do it at your best behavior because you are who your ancestors have been waiting for. So maybe the previous acharyas that came and did, so everybody that's assembled right here now, you are who those devotees have been waiting for when they did that service. So in service to them, let's be at our best. Thank you.
Haribo. Thank you, Prabhu. So we've heard wonderful stories about how this temple has come about. We've heard about the legacy. And in order for us to move forward stronger with steadfast determination, we're now going to hear from the management of the temple, and His Grace Ramvijay Prabhu will now share with us some ideas and future thinking that the temple management has in plan.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, devotees, for sharing all those experiences. And I really do feel very appreciative for what we have. I think we do take it for granted. The temple has been here from the time I came to Krishna consciousness, and we definitely have taken it for granted, not understanding what so many devotees have done before us. I have a message from Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, which I'd like to play. I'm hoping the technology doesn't let me down. So I'm going to try to do that now from my phone. And let's see if it works. It's just about 2 minutes. We can just play that.
Shri Radhanath Temple. We are here at ISKCON Santon at the moment, also celebrating the grand celebration of Shri Radhanath's 37th anniversary. We have so many senior devotees here today. His Tribanga Sundar Prabhu, who just sent a message. His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who is currently speaking on the glories of the Shri Radhanath Temple and what it's done for him. And in this way, it's not only what it's done for him, but what Shri Radhanath and the devotees have done for the entire South African yatra. And it stretches beyond that. We visit places in India. And while traveling through different parts of South Africa and India, we see this beautiful form of Shri Radhanath on somebody's altar, on somebody's wall, on somebody's phone. It's just so amazing, this beauty of Shri Radhanath. They said, if one has to choose one's favorite deities from all around the world, what will that deity be? And to us, it will always be Shri Radhanath, because the favorite deity will always be that deity that we are serving. So although I'm so far away, and although I've been gone for a few months now, Shri Radhanath will always be my home. Shri Radhanath will always be my deities. And every day I pray to them that I can offer some service to them, some significant service to their lotus feet, because they have done so much for us. So in this way I'm praying to the deities, but I'm also praying to all of y'all that allow me to offer some service to you, that I can also get some of this mercy of Shri Radhanath and the devotees. Thank you, devotees, for all of your service. Thank you so much. And let's go on for the next 37 years now and grow this temple into something really, really more beautiful. Shri Radhanath ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.
So we heard from His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, and as you can see, he's carrying on the celebrations in Santon for Shri Radhanath. And His Grace Swarup Damodar Prabhu also called earlier and wanted to express his prayer for the mercy of Radhanath and all of us, and for us to be engaged in their service. So he's thinking about us also. From Vrindavan, he's there currently serving His Holiness Giriraj Swami. And hearing what the devotees have done for us, to get us to where we are, and the time that's passed, 37 years has gone. Shri Radhanath Temple, of course, is not in the same pristine condition it was when these devotees came to the opening. So what we'd like to request your help, your assistance, is to try and restore the temple precinct, the temple area, to be what it was in 1985, that pristine condition. Time has taken its toll, and of course, we have residences, we have the moat, and you'll notice everywhere the effect of the time and the wear and tear is showing. So hopefully in the next few months, some plans would come forward about what we can do and the different projects and programs we can do to restore Radhanath's temple to the state it was, and also some new things that we'd like to have, like a wheelchair ramp, some prasadam facility, those kinds of things. So we're requesting your help. If you have ideas, skills, contacts, Lakshmi, please come forward so we can start talking about these things and making these plans a reality in the next few months. And then on the second note, apart from Radhanath's temple, we heard about how the devotees toiled and the commitment the devotees had. And COVID also has had that effect, that it's created some distance. Our community is no longer as close and as strong as it was before COVID. So now it's time for us to all come together, recommit ourselves to Shri Radhanath, their service. That's what this temple is here for devotees to engage in their Lordship service. So yes, come, if you're a newcomer, come as a visitor, get to understand our philosophy, our process, practice it, and then engage in some service so that you feel connected and you feel you're making a contribution to Sri Sri Radhanath also. So those are the two things we'd like to focus on going forward, getting us all recommitted and physically active in Radhanath's service, and then restoring Radhanath's temple to its former glory also. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Ram Vijay Prabhu. So we've come to the end of our program, and just a personal realization is that we've heard so many wonderful stories about devotees who have made so many sacrifices in the past to see this temple being built, and just listening to Ram Vijay Prabhu and his plea for devotees to come forward and also make a contribution. If you feel like you have something to offer to Radhanath, service, time, your expertise, please contact Ram Vijay Prabhu or other temple devotees here and see how you can be part of this movement and continue this legacy. We have so much to offer. We have to have that sense of gratitude for what Radhanath has done for us over the years, and we have to recommit ourselves, especially on these anniversary festivals, is recommitting, reconnecting. So with that, acknowledging devotees, I'd just like to also mention that today's Prabhupada's Love Feast is prepared by the Reservoir Hills Namahata under the leadership of Anantadev Prabhu. So we'd like to thank them for that feast. And if you'd like to be part of that service of cleaning vegetables or cooking, you could contact Dayal Chaitanya Prabhu at the serve-out area. I know he's not here in the temple room. He's normally always very busy preparing for the Sunday feast. And then certainly, last but not least, I'd like to thank our panel of devotees here. Can we all give them 3 cheers of Haribol? Haribol! 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 Thank you, dear devotees. We pray that you all, continue to inspire us and with your wonderful service that you've done. And I had a list of devotees here which I was going to mention, but time is against us. But we all have to acknowledge the contribution that they have made. So thank you all very much for sharing your stories and inspiring us. Shri Shri Radhanath ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Go Premanande.